I'm here with Robert Sklar. Robert Sklar, longtime editor of the Detroit Jewish News. In fact, after its founder, Phil Slomovitz, the longest-serving editor of the Jewish News. One of the things that I wanted to ask Robert Sklar was, when he looks at the Jewish community today, Detroit Jewish community is seen by many as being really one of the best in North America. What role, if any, do you feel the Jewish News over the years, when you look back at the history of the Jewish News, may have played in helping the Detroit Jewish community become the kind of community that is so admired nationally and internationally?
That's a great question, Arthur. Having grown up in Detroit, I've basically followed the Jewish News my entire life. Growing up in Northwest Detroit, we got the paper delivered every Friday, and my start in journalism began in junior high school and high school, so I really was sensitive to the role that the Jewish News played back then and through the years. So what the Jewish News has done has really helped unify and provide continuity for our great Jewish community. I've often described the JN as the lodestar for Detroit Jewry. At the end of the day, the one unifying force that we've had for 75 years and continue to have is really the Detroit Jewish News.
So when you think back over your tenure as editor, is there an example that comes to mind that stands out for you that kind of illustrates that role that the Jewish News has played in shaping the community, something that really pops out at you?
Early on, I became editor in 1998. Within 2 years of that, 2000, we received our first gay wedding announcement. In the normal course of things, that wouldn't necessarily be the source of a major story. But at the time, it became one because we had never printed such announcements previously, and even the secular newspaper world was beginning to, at the early stages of developing policies in terms of printing such news in their publications. And within a few years, we were printing such announcements with careful wording, and we really became not only a beginning point locally for such announcements in the Jewish community, but on a national scale, other Jewish publications around the country were actually calling us. What was the process we used to really begin that announcement? And now it's commonplace, and it's great, and it's part of our culture.
When you became editor of the Jewish News, were there certain aspects of that philosophy that Phil Slomovitz baked into, or attempted to bake into the DNA, if you will, of the Jewish News, that you felt that you were continuing, as well as parallel to that, you had your own ideas, you had your own sense of what the community needs were, and a legacy perhaps that you were looking to leave behind for the community and future editors. Can you just maybe think through a little bit about what from Phil Slomovitz you may have looked in a conscious, deliberate way to carry on, and also separate from that, what you hoped to maybe instill in the Jewish News in a way that would carry on your own legacy?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the impact and the vision that Phil Slomovitz's legacy left on me, or left with me, the importance of the fact that this newspaper was built on a foundation of Zionism, the passion and the love for Israel that he created this newspaper from was an important influence on me in making sure that day in and day out, as a local publication, we covered our local community as best we could, but we also provided on a bit larger scale the kind of news and information that would be relevant to our readers about our ancestral Jewish homeland. In terms of what I brought personally to the Jewish News, I think was a sense of community journalism. One of the allures for me of coming to the Jewish News was combining my great passion for Judaism and journalism. And as I grew up in a community newspaper world, community journalism world, and that's hyper-local and hyper-involved.
Well, here we are at 75 years from the founding of the Jewish News. If we had a crystal ball and we were looking not to the next 25 years, because things are changing to a point where sometimes it's hard to know what's happening in a week or even a month. But if you looked into your crystal ball, if we had one to look into literally, and you pictured the Jewish News and the Detroit Jewish community 10 years from now, what might you see of the community? What might you see of the Jewish News? And what might you see of that intersection, that coming together that for its first 75 years has represented that community Jewish News relationship?
I continue to see the Detroit Jewish community being, although small, a leader in terms of really providing Jewish life on a homespun scale. And I'm hopeful that the digital aspects of what the Jewish News will be able to provide news-wise 10 years from now. I'm not sure we'll have a print publication as we know it today, but there could be some sort of print model attached to that. But we're going to really be communicating in a different way as a publication company, and I think the community at large is going to be really reliant as much on us 10 years from now as they are today for the kinds of news and information that'll help make their lives here in the Detroit Jewish community special.